Now, the interesting thing about you, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. That's not your worry, love. The fact is the way you're sitting, that looks like Tommy Cooper's fez over your head.
No.
Yes, just like that. Well, Kelly, can you believe that at the end of this month we're going to have a book? We're going to be published authors. It's incredible.
Yeah, I liked your reminder that we can now say we're co-authors. That made me think, oh. And then I told a work colleague about it, and she said that, oh, look at you in those upper echelons. You know, she just made it sound like a big thing, and I thought, no, I'm just glad we've got there. But it is a big thing in a way. But also you think, well, actually, this is only the start, because we've started. Yeah. It's a start of something rather than we're done and move on to things. So it feels like a massive catalyst.
It does.
And finding people in flow. So yeah, finding a way to help other people find their flow, and also finding it for ourselves, and amongst everything else that we pack into our week. Yeah,
and I think it was just nice, wasn't it? When I think about, you know, if someone were to say, well, what did you do it for? What do you think you're going to get out of it? And as you say, helping people find their flow. But I think it was giving us a voice as well. And maybe just recognizing that actually, you know, between us, we've got 60 man years of experience in lots of different areas and industries and disciplines and skills. And we've got a view, which is our view. Therefore, it's legitimate to talk about what we think about engagement and well-being. And obviously it's caused us to look into it even more, to put some more rigor and some more substance around it, and to create something really meaningful that stands on its own.
Yeah, all the people I've mentioned it to, work colleagues and family friends, I think direct family are probably tired of hearing about it, because it's been a little while, a couple of years in the making. But the friends and colleagues, there's a curiosity. And as soon as you tell them the title, it's like, instead of that sort of polite response you get, and a keenness to say, oh, I want to have a look. I want to hear a bit more about that. So that is it feels like, and it sounds like we've, even though it's taken us a while to get over the finish line, you know, that 2.5 years. It was going to be your 50th present, but it's just at the tail end of your 50th year, or maybe beyond.
We know that was all a lie, that I'm really 40.
Yeah, exactly. You look at the picture of good health, and you haven't had to use any Botox whatsoever.
Well, this is only the upper body. The rest of it is just absolutely, it's just sagging. You know, it's just gone. No, it hasn't really.
No. Well, and that's the other thing as well. When you're writing something like this, you definitely get a sense of practice what you preach, do for yourself what you say we should do for others if we are employing people and being responsible. So there is a you know, children are very quick to point out hypocrisy. Yes. Parents doing one thing and saying that they should do another, and in this space, again, you know, people will point out hypocrisy if we're not looking after ourselves, and we do try and do that to the best of our ability, but we still keep piling in all these interesting things that we do, and the keeping in touch with our tribe, our respective tribes, and our extended tribes, with the families, lifetime friends, etc.
I think that's it, isn't it? I think that's the nature of us as a couple of beasts, really, is that there's always going to be the next new shiny thing over there that we're interested in. And, you know, that's probably why it's taken 2.5 years. But then again, what has been quite good is that we have, because we're trying to practice what we preach, recognized when we're doing it, and reined ourselves in. Like, you know, sometimes it might be, should we go and do a bike ride together? Or actually we need to take a break and go, and, like, you've got your dog this year, go and walk the dog, or need to have some family time, or, you know, actually, am I eating properly? And I'm feeling like this at the moment. And then you put yourself in the guise of writing, and you think, what would I advise myself? Well, perhaps I need to address my sleep patterns. Maybe I need to look at how I'm eating. You know, what might be causing the stress I'm feeling or the anxiety I'm feeling at the moment, and at least we're noticing it, and I think that's half the
Yeah.
battle.
Yeah, taking time to listen to and listening and noticing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just having the
And
awareness.
yes, to include too much desk time is not good for you, I've discovered, having developed a little bit of tennis elbow linked to spending too much time at a computer.
Yeah.
So I now have a set of physio stretches right next to my desk, and place. So I do those, take breaks every hour. I don't know about you, but I found that in an intense stretch, you could be on phone, running a webinar or doing something, and 2 to 3 hours pass, bang, and you've not moved, and then you try and stand up. So, so I've discovered that the regular breaks aren't just a cursory message. You really, really do need them. And then,
Yes.
and I think the COVID thing, this was brewing before COVID, because I work from home anyway, lots of location independent work. But that's been amplified during COVID because of the intensity of the hours at home at the same desk, and not doing that water cooler chat or making a coffee in the work kitchen and speaking to a colleague. So you get that 10-minute break, not necessarily every hour, but there are more excuses for breaks at work than there are when you're on a mission at home, I find. I don't know about you. How do you find the whole setup working from home?
Well, I've not really particularly been working from home that much for a number of years, because I've been doing quite a lot of project support for clients, and that requires me to be in the room with them. You know, because things are very changeable and up to the minute and very fast moving. So, and from a communications point of view, you have to be on top of that. So this has been quite a kind of rekindling of a relationship with working from home that I had when I first started my business over 8 years ago now, and where I probably had the first 2.5 years mainly working at home and then going onto client sites. And actually, I had been enjoying going into an office, but I've enjoyed this because I found that I am focused. I'm as productive as I was when I was in the office. I'm getting an awful lot done. Yes, like you, I mean, I can have a day of back-to-back webinars and so on and so forth, or just constant calls. But then, you know, equally, I mean, I'm in a position really now over the summer where I'm busy, but because lots of other people are going on holiday now, I can actually sit quietly and work through things without having those frenzied calls all the time. But what I am not liking is I do something every day exercise wise. So I either do yoga or I run. And then in the evenings, that's the running and the yoga is the morning. Then in the evenings, I try and go for a walk, but don't always manage it. So what I don't like is the feeling at the end of the day of thinking I've just sat there all day and not moved about, because when I am on a client site, I make a point of walking to people rather than emailing or phoning, because of just the engagement about it. So I quite miss that, because I just don't feel my body is doing enough, even though I'm always exercising in the morning. So I'm actively looking at that, and I suppose on the practice what you preach front, it's making me think, right, perhaps I'm really going to need to have to block out that time at lunchtime that is both my eating time, not the horrible habit I've got at eating at my desk, which I was doing in the office and I do at home, but I need to actually block out that time and go for a half an hour walk. Or I need to finish at this time, which is another horrible habit I've got of letting the day bleed into the evening, and then be tired at the end of it that I think I don't want to go out for a walk. I've got to set a marker, because, you know, it's just the calories versus energy thing, isn't it, really? If you're not doing enough, you're not burning them, you're going to put weight on.
Yeah.
And if I put weight on, then, as you know, when I was doing various fitness challenges last year, so, you know, whether that was my second ever triathlon, or it was the Great South Run, or it was the Moonwalk, you know, I had that knee injury that lasted 10 months. And one of the things that I sort of paid attention to is, as well as doing things like yoga to make it better, things like not carrying excess weight helps to not put the pressure on it. So that it sort of comes around in a cyclical fashion, I think, really, that then if you look at your daily pattern and find that you've been sitting there all day, my knee hurts if I'm just sitting there all day.
Yeah.
And equally if I'm not going out and exercising enough. So yeah, it's I like working at home, but I don't necessarily like what it does to my body sometimes.
Yeah, I quite like the World Health Organization's view that the exercise needn't be in significant big chunks because there's so much pressure on the time of the day. So I have a skipping rope hanging up in the conservatory. I have one of those textured hula hoops in the garden. So if I could take a phone call and stand there hula hooping at the same time, I probably would.
Oh,
but I can't do that on
okay.
webinar. Yeah. Skipping I wouldn't advise. So there's a few sort of strategies. There's a turbo trainer and a running machine. If it needs to be a short, intense blast of exercise. I don't love the turbo trainer as much as getting out on a bike properly outside. So
I thought you meant the dog, because the dog's called Turbo. I thought turbo training was another word, another phrase for taking the dog out.
No, the turbo trainer, yeah, actually turbo trainer is probably not quite right. I've probably mixed up the dog's name with the equipment there. It is a running machine and a bicycle on a turbo trainer.
Indeed. Well,
Gadget.
there's the hazard of calling the dog Turbo rather than Spot.
Yes, but he, so I walk the dog every morning, and the friend that I walk with, who she identifies spending all day at work working from home and not moving at all. And I said, well, why didn't you come walking with me during the week? Because I have to get up every morning and walk the dog. So we went from once a week walking together to now we walk 6 days together. So we've done an hour before we start work. Her daughter went for a walk with her one evening and said, to be quite honest, you needn't bother taking up running because you walk so jolly fast. She says, that's the Cali factor.
Oh, indeed.
So we, and actually it's as much to do with Turbo. Turbo goes along at a trot. He stops and sniffs, but he does it at a high speed trot. So to keep up with him and not be telling him off for tightening the lead all the time, we've developed quite a pace to keep abreast with the dog. So it's turbocharged walking in the morning, literally.
There's a whole kind of lexicon to this dog.
Yes. Yeah, there is actually. There is. And there's a very good chance of canine interruption during any phone call, webinar, etc. Because if he spots that he's left the house and he wants to come and say hello, he invites himself in. He hasn't quite learned to open doors far off it.
No, bless. Well, I mean, I do have that occasionally with the cat, but not the walking part. So she likes to just to sort of jump up, show her backside, glare at the person on the webinar, and then leave. I mean, we find it quite endearing, but I can well imagine that it must be quite disconcerting for people that aren't quite used to that way of living. But yeah, no, I mean, it's just thinking back to, you know, here we are we're nearly into August tomorrow, really, aren't we? So, to think that we'll have the book out really in a matter of weeks is incredible. And you know, one of the exciting things is that Anna, who's been doing our cartoons and who is doing our cover, is just on the final stages of colouring in the design for the cover, which is fantastic. Yeah, so tomorrow.
I stopped short. Yeah, that's I'm really looking forward to that. I stopped short of telling somebody what the cover was today because I thought, no, that will spoil it because they'll have a lovely chuckle when they see what it is. Yeah.
We can share that really maybe in a couple of posts time, really, what the cover is as a little teaser, perhaps. That would be nice.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? It's fun and it's lighthearted. It's trying to not take ourselves too seriously, but take the subject matter seriously and do the doing that you need to do to be fit for work in a way that suits whatever your work demands of you, really.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of summing us up, really. Yeah, so very exciting. And, you know, well, it's been a pleasure to write this with you.
Well, I can echo that, Annette, because I would never have done it without you. So your prompting, your gentle prompting, as opposed to size 11s, has been, hugely welcomed. I did. I don't think I ever thought I'd become an author, actually, until we had that brainstorming session and we were talking about that charity event, and all of a sudden the idea became a possibility. So yeah, well done you for grasping the possibility. And you haven't dragged me along. It's been, I think it's been definitely co-created in a way that's been good for both of us to push ourselves a bit into that space that we'd like to occupy.
Absolutely, and I think that's the thing when we do the odd fitness activity together, really, isn't it? It's just about supporting the other person and along the journey, and accepting that there'll be times when it's a bit harder and maybe one has to step up, and then on another occasion maybe the other one has to step up, but we get there in the end, don't we? We've got there in the end.
Yeah.
So it's a miracle.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, I'm not sure. I didn't think we were miracle workers, but there is an element. I think tenacity, the fact that we've had the tenacity between us to hang in there, despite some of the undulations and things that have happened along the way. So, and who would have guessed that we'd be launching this book at a time when there are potentially going to be millions unemployed. So if ever there was a time to put out something that might help those prospective employees find their new way of being in the world of work, then I hope that it's smashing timing for them and that they get something from it, because we can't magic jobs out of the air, and rethinking what we do for our life's work, whatever that looks like, it requires a lot of thinking space, doesn't it? It's a big deal.
It is, and I think, as one of the things I was saying to you that I feel about this situation is that there are winners and there are losers in this situation.
Yeah.
And I don't mean losers in a
Definitely.
detrimental way, but I mean that there are some industries that it will never be the same again. But then there'll be the rise of others, and also the opportunity for those that have been waiting on the sidelines. And I'm thinking about climate change, which it's not been so much on the sidelines, but it's definitely gaining the prominence. So I suppose if you're looking for what your purpose is, engaging with something, an entity, an organization that you feel that you can really connect to for your, for the next few years, and it's something you really believe in that is doing good. Let's take something for the environment as an example. There'll be a lot of investment in that area now, because we've all, if we hadn't seen the light before, we certainly see the light now. Those are opportunities now that have got that sort of turbo thrust behind them, that you can retrain, move forward with a sense of purpose. And also, I think, in the knowledge that a lot of organizations have really stepped up on the well-being front. So how about that you work for an organization where well-being is important, it will support you in a purposeful job, and you can blend that in with a good work-life balance. I mean, that's a fantastic position to be in, because of course we're all going to be, living longer, technically, in theory, with the benefits of good healthcare. But we need to work longer for, to earn, to be able to support that. So, if we're in a role where we feel committed, engaged, we share the same values, we've got the same kind of purpose, we think we're doing good, and we're cared about, that's something to really strive for and look forward to.
Always. And that's not necessarily going to be the first job you enter into. So for all the young people possibly choosing not to go to university, possibly choosing an apprenticeship or another entry into the working world, there's a high probability they aren't going to be there for 20, 30 years, and they will change frequently.
Yeah.
And those purpose and values drivers seem to be more prevalent in the younger workforce than I remember them being when I joined work.
Definitely.
10 years ago. So I think, the land changed, and employers largely have changed have adjusted. Perhaps not all of them at this pace, Yeah, so the webinar that I was listening to earlier today, the CMI related one, it included a discussion between a CEO, a people director, and a member from the CMI management team. And one of the key things that came up both in the chat and in them talking about how you're adjusting. So how is, for example, your restaurant chain adjusting? Well, they're only opening 5% of their venues, for example. That's a big loss of headcount. And they're having to make some tough decisions, and also think about, well, what about the well-being of staff that are staying, you know, as well as those that are having to move on and do other things. So it's yeah, it's a tough time, but there is always possibilities if you have a resilient mindset. Not necessarily just a growth mindset, but a resilient mindset that there is something I can do in this world that's appropriate for me, relevant to what I care about, and actually that matches or aligns to whatever the company stands for. So yeah, I think more alignment would be better all around for businesses and people's health, business health and people health.
Absolutely. And I think just thinking about those young people that are much more purpose-led than we were, they are active shoppers, you know, so it's less about organizations trying to find the right person. It's more about the person finding the right organization and putting them through the ringer as regards what they offer. So what are they doing to invest back in you? What are they doing for well-being? What are they doing for investment in your continuing development? What's their approach to you, supporting you with a work-life balance? Are sabbaticals a possibility? You know, can you learn other skills that have nothing to do with your job? What are the possibilities for volunteering? You know, what kinds of causes do they support? You know, are they the same kind of causes I support? Would I want to come and work for you? So all of that goes on really with our sort of our up and coming youth who are out looking for jobs. You know, as they were really picking and choosing between employers, and even now I know that obviously it's less of a buyer's market, but I still think that's going to be very valid, that you know, to recruit the right talent, you're going to need to be a little bit more humble about it.
And I think organisations that have got their eye on this, they're perhaps doing that, but not all of them have.
No.
Some of them, it's a little bit of the adrenaline equivalent kicking in. How on earth do we survive this? You know, that and actually that sort of slight crisis mode in terms of the physiology of it, fight, flight, or you know, right, that kind of adrenaline filled, not the pleasurable endorphin seeking stuff you might get from exercise. So if you're in that mode, you aren't necessarily at your best creative and innovative thinking either. So that doesn't help them. And I think actually having alternative strategies, being able to step back and look for alternative strategies, I think Feel Good, Do Good work is going to hopefully help them with that journey. Yeah,
I think you're right. Well, good to catch up. And
yes, no, good to see you.
The journey continues.